Welcome to the video, welcome to the channel. We got a ton of work to do. Bunch of little odds and ends in here. A bunch of little odds and ends down in this secret compartment, but there's a chance we could get this thing to fire up for the first time in a long time. 7% chance, but it exists. I want to start on this end of the operation. If you're new to the channel, this is the dump truck build. We took 3 scrap trucks and we're trying to make one decent dump truck out of this thing. We put a ton of work into it. Previous video, we just got the cab set back on, which means we got all the connections to make. All the wiring, brake lines, power steering lines, and we upgraded the power steering system. So I think the first problem we're gonna have, I think I gotta swap this whole pump over. And this is the reason. This is the pump off the vacuum system. This hose has nowhere to go with that style of can on there. We'll look over here at the 94 and I'll show you what we need. That hose goes right there. But everything I've read said this should swap over to that, with the exception we're going to have to change the pulley out. Maybe we can zip this bracket off the top there and take those 3 bolts out, pull it out and figure out how to swap that pulley over. This is your reminder, if you are new to the channel, I'm not a professional. I just make this stuff up as I go. I've never done anything like that. It's one of the reasons we're doing this. I'm trying to kind of learn some things along the way. So don't do something I do, because you're like, hey, that worked for him. I have no idea. Oh yeah? Cool. So with that bracket off, obviously the belt's no longer in contention, and it looks like we got 1, 2, and there's a 3rd bolt down on the bottom. It's going to have to be wrenched. You know, fellas, looking at this, and even if I get these bolts out, I can't get that can out unless that pulley comes off, right? Am I looking at that right? Because it can't fit through that housing. Do I have to try to get that pulley off? I'm just going to pull this whole bracket off. That way we can get it out and get a puller on it. I don't know if it's right, but I know it's what I'm doing. All right, 3 bolts later, and this whole assembly just comes out. Minus, oh yeah, we probably had to undo that hose, I guess. Okay, out she comes. Look at the easy access for that bolt now, huh? Now we gotta get the one out of this truck. We had to take the pulley off because this has the V-belt pulleys. Get this hose off here first. Okay. Undo the bottom one first. Take tension off. We'll zip that out. A little easier. So they are definitely the same. Pump, 3 bolts. That all looks identical. The only difference is that hose attachment right there, which I guess just gives a place for extra fluid to go whenever you push the brakes. How well do we think that's going to pull off there? Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Oh, there's a little movement. Let's run some vibrations down the center here. There's a little movement. There we go. bracket. Take a small hammer and some round bar and try to this is from the puller. I got a little aggressive with her. Oh yeah. Heck, we'll get 100 miles to the belt now. Actually doesn't look bad. The real question is how am I going to press that back on? Seeing as I don't have a press. So I've got the bracket carefully supported, but not the plastic. I don't know if we can just get this to so that is on to the perceivable depth of where it needs to be. Now here's the thing. Now, again, not an advice channel, but if you're looking at this and you're thinking, wow, it takes all that to switch that over, I don't want to mess with it. I don't think it does. I think, and once we get this on the truck, I'll check my theory here, but I'm pretty sure you can pop this whole reservoir can off and just switch the reservoir can. But this is a remanufactured power steering pump. The hose that we're using for that system came off of this pump. This way, it's the whole new system altogether. The only old thing on it is the pulley and the bracket. Everything else is made exactly for that system. I think this pump would still work fine for it. In fact, they might be the exact same thing, but this way I know for sure. Also, internally, there's a spring and there's a little screen. It just goes like that, right back in that hole. I have it out right now so I don't go to install this and drop it. We'll put that in before we put the hose in. The hose is what holds that in. That's something that doesn't need to be lost. Let me see if we can just pop this off. This is just general curiosity. It's 90% positive you can give this a whack. I think the hose is what holds the can on. Yeah, see that? Breaker loose. Oops. And then that whole can just pops right off there. So if a fellow wants to just do that, you absolutely could. I'm trying to keep the whole power steering system matching. I will say the one thing that makes me nervous is I know that pump I took out worked, and even though I think I'm upgrading to a newer remanufactured pump, I don't know that this pump works because I haven't tested it. So that's a little nerve-wracking. Get it started, but not tighten it down because it does swivel. And there's this hose on the bottom. And while we got access, this is snug enough to hold the components in, but not tight yet. We'll wait till we get the hose right where it needs to go, but go ahead and do this hose on the bottom. And this hose, which is already attached to the system down there, goes down right in there. And then the new one, the new pump we put on, goes right there. So we got to get that one, which went to the old pump. Gotta get that off there. So there's a seal on into that little O-ring. Want to make sure that the old one comes with it and that the new one has it. So we got that one on the bottom hooked up now. Also handy having that loose to give a little bit more access. We'll get this hooked up next, belts, and we'll reach back there and see if we can't get that column on there. All right, a little lubrication. I looked at the steering wheel. I think we're probably where we need to be at. I don't know. Oh, just a shade more. All right. Hopefully that doesn't fall out. I mean, that seems about right, yeah? Wheels slightly to the left. Wheels slightly to the left. Yeah, we'll find out at some point. Let's do this clutch master cylinder next. It's still hooked up to the one that was on the 87. I believe they're going to be the same, but I got to get that little roll pin out of there. So I got some other roll pins, and I don't know why this one's being stubborn, but I was going to try to drill it out, but I don't know if it's going to. There it goes. Jeez. That thing was seized in there. All right. There's a little O-ring. Here we are, getting a roll pin in. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get this deep enough. The old O-ring from the previous line was still in there, so there we go. But once we got that out, we're good to go. By the way, an old board, kind of handy right now. I'm not leaning on all this stuff. I suppose the next thing, well, let's reach down and get that dipstick attached real quick. Right in there, it just goes, that bracket right there. Just got to get a nut on there to hold it on that exhaust stud. And we got brake lines. That's not the right wrench, not even close. Question to the people that actually know, do they put these coils in here so that the brake lines are the same length for some reason? Why do they got all these coils in here all the time? Brake lines, power steering hoses, not this one. Steering column, dipstick, clutch. Next thing I want to do, that heater hose tube, that was all rot out. Now I never did pick another one up. Go ahead and drop my pliers right there too. But I do believe on this parts truck, this thing has been great. On this parts truck, they've got one threaded in right there, and I think that's exactly what I need. Straight water is what was in this, no coolant. Somebody, I think, put some effort in trying to get this thing going and just threw some fluids in it, just for the sake of having fluids in. And we'll just zip it out the rest of the way. Fitting looks good, as long as it's the right size. That's what we're looking for, as long as it's the right size. We'll just test fit it just to make sure it actually, oh yeah, perfect. We might have a little clearance issue with the hose right here. Oh, I don't know. Maybe a fella ought to try to get that hose on first. So I got the hose on there with it, and I'm trying to get it manipulated in a way. I think we're just about where we need to be here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, can we get the hose clamp where it needs to go? It's got this right on this bracket, but this hose out of that 7.3 has this extra abrasion sheathing on there. So I don't see, I mean, we're gonna run it. Let's get some of this wiring straightened out. All right, we'll just go one at a time. So this went straight to the battery. We'll just put a new end on it. There's the starter cable on this end of the operation. Let's pulls up. And the underside of this truck looks good. Who did this? Oh, it looks great under here. Very nice. Here's wiring that goes to the backside alternator, or however you'd like to pronounce it. This wire, which is explained to me as a heater for the choke, seems to not be a thing anymore. So we'll nip that off. This end is up here. Let's see, this clicks in here. So I've got the place for this to plug into, but this appears to be some assembly required. Now, it was explained to me that this alternator has an issue with catching on fire. I mean, I don't know. Kind of wish I would have done this while I was out in the open. Looks like it's going to be pretty self-explanatory, though. I don't know that they both go to the same place, that fusible link up there. So, well, we'll see what happens here. I'm going to take these two and put them in the two bigger ones, and we'll put the white one and hook it to the white one, and we'll see. So there's what we ended up with. Everything heat shrunk, crimped together, and then that plug, which just goes in. Which side's the clip on this side? Just go in right here. Beautiful. I saved the tail end of one of those harnesses to get me towards the back of the truck for the fuel pump and lights and things like that. We'll have to completely rewire the rear lights, but I saved the harness. So these two here, go clean those first, Mike? No, I doubt it. Go to those two rectangular fellers there, and they work their way back. That went to the ABS module. Just gonna leave that there. And these ran back. Let's see. That's my fuel tank diverter. What wires ran to my fuel pump? I took this harness off and saved it because I knew I would need it. Yep. Oh. Got a ground strap right there we need to get knocked out real quick. I'm going to go ahead and run some fuel line next. I got some there. There's already some in the back. There's going to be a splice in the frame rail a little bit further back, but we're going to get this routed. Your microphone receiver needs its battery charged, so. Very nice. I need to steal some clips off that other truck that go there to hold these bolts. These little clips here, that's what I need. They slide into the core support just like this. By the way, I called this a front clip on the previous video. Man, did that get people fired up. That's okay. We're gonna pour some coolant in and just see if she comes gushing out anywhere. There's a petcock down here. I can't remember if that's opened or closed. Looks closed. It's also stuck, so who knows really. So watch right here. I don't have this heater hose on because it kind of lets me see where we're at. Of course, it'll have to run to bleed itself out. But I think we're up through the pump. See it coming out right there? It's kind of like a water level, so where that's at should be about the same level in the radiator. All right, let's put that heater hose on and put a little bit more water in it. Another parts truck bonus. That truck had a heater hose valve on one of the hoses, so I snagged that as well. If we've got any leaks or seeps at this point, we're probably not doing great, but I want to know about it if it's happening. And we'll slide some cardboard underneath there. Now we got a couple drops right here. That's when it came off the heater hose I was showing you earlier. But hopefully when we come back from working in the cab, this is all dry. A couple drops right there I would expect, but anywhere else. We got the inertia switch we got to put in. We're just going to plug it in for now. These are the same switch, and I think it was supposed to go on the brake pedal, but I got to double check that. One huge issue with the soundproofing I did is I don't know where anything attached to the firewall anymore. I'll have to go back and look at the videos, but guessing on the wire, I'd say this was somewhere in this region. You gotta be kidding me. No. You can reset it though, right? See how the plunger came out? See, that can't be a good thing. My understanding is if you get in a wreck, this is supposed to automatically kill the truck or kill the vehicle. Fuel pumps, all that stuff, safety reasons. That's supposed to be inside there. And it popped out on me when I plugged it in. And I don't think that's good. Good news, I found the throttle pedal. Bad news is we definitely got a leak out there. So that's not great. Good news, bad news, it is a leak there. There's a drip, it's small. But I think it's this heater hose. I think it's this thing we tried to rig up. Oh no, it's wet right there, yeah. Something with that heater hose. It's not the gasket, it's not the bolts. So I may have to come up with a plan B on that. But it's not bad enough that we can't, we can't try to run it. I need a return spring, a choke cable, and figure out how to power up that fuel pump. And I think we're ready to try something. So I did not find that harness, but I do have the old pump yet. And I'll probably just have to order another harness. So what we're gonna do is just make sure we can hot wire this correctly. But it looks like this one is gonna be power. And this one is gonna be the ground. Give it a bump and make sure that's what it is. Then we'll go get some gas, see what happens from there. And we'll probably just jump it at the solenoid and eliminate the key switch because it's 5:30. Also, I was trying to figure out where the choke cable goes because I couldn't find the hole for the choke cable. Oh yeah, this was a diesel. I removed my baked potato to see if it was done yet. It was not, and we're gonna have to put a hole in there at some point. We can probably just do a manual choke for today's activities, but in the long run, gonna have to address that. We're also gonna have to plug this because this ran to the vacuum brake system, and we're gonna have to plug that, which ran over to the heater box. I got some gas in here now. Should be able to fire this up and run until we hear some fuel, at least come back to the turn line, then we know we're all the way through it. Given the fact that there's a puddle of gas right here, I'm gonna say we got a leak somewhere. Well, I'd say it's got some gas in it now. Makes me a little nervous. I think if we get a new battery with more cranking amps, we'll get it to spin. The jump pack at 11 volts gets it to turn. 2500 doesn't get it to do anything. The jump pack probably has more cranking amps than the 2500 does, so maybe I just need to get a new battery. We'll try from there. All right, we got a brand new battery with the right cranking amps and everything looking good there. Let's see if she spins at least. I'll be honest, I don't know if it'll do anything because the way the ignition is right now. I've got that inertia switch jumped and I've got the ignition on, but when I try to turn the ignition, it doesn't crank this, which means I've got the ignition out of sync. I don't think here, I mean on the actual tumbler itself when I did that, switch that column over, which I'm not too incredibly surprised by that, but I'd love to hear it just cough a little bit, but I don't know if it will, if that key's not right. All right, we'll give her just a few pumps here. Oh God. Because it seems like that carburetor's leaking a little bit, I'm not leaving the fuel pump running, we're just giving it a little bit of throttle, a little bit of gas up to it. Then giving her a little bit of gas on the pedal. And then, okay. All right, let's run it just a little bit longer. I'll do it one more time for you. Okay. Is there anything shooting out anywhere? No. Just the seep out of that heater hose. I mean, it's only a few seconds, but oh, wow. Yep, she's a runner. And she might be a little out of time, or she might just be that cammed. I honestly don't know. Probably a little out of time, but either way, I don't hate it. And it makes a fella feel good. We got a long way to go on this thing, there's no doubt about it. Let me give you the format and the breakdown for what's coming up on the channel for the next couple months. It's going to the YouTube yacht. Lumber is supposed to be delivered tomorrow, and we're gonna start doing some work on the YouTube yacht. We're not quitting on working on the truck, but here's the catch. I don't have a bunch of stuff. When we first started this, there's so many things that needed work. I could bounce around and make sure I always had content every Monday and Thursday, which is our upload schedule. But now it's gonna be one little random part that stops me from getting progress done. So I'm gonna keep working on this, and then whenever I get enough work done on it that it's good enough for a video, then we'll put this out. But this will still be getting worked on, and I don't wanna say it's on the back burner, because it's not. It's still getting worked on, but I'm not gonna put a video out on it unless we get this thing driving. So that's gonna be the next thing. Drive shaft out, some odds and ends, get that column adjusted for the key, get the fuel pump harness, which is ordered. We got some parts ordered and coming, and hopefully get this thing driving around a little bit. I'm excited. Oh man, the fella needed that. Fella needed that. How do you contain this type of joy?